I know the rest of the world is slowly moving on from K-pop demon hunters, and before I join them in moving on to my next hyperfixation, because hyperfixations are how I cope in this world as it is, I figure that it would be a great opportunity to make a video focused solely on Rumi and the isolation of perfection that is central to our arc. Because whilst as viewers we're able to see that her terrified response of keeping her patterns covered even while she's with her friends speaks to how the desire to be perfect and purified based off of Celine's teachings isolates her from said friends, I notice that we often miss out on how that same perfection also bleeds out into her work and her interaction with her larger audience as well, ensuring that of all the characters in the movie, Rumi, who has to stand apart from their audience whilst at the same time stay separated from the rest of Untrix, really is the loneliest soul in the film. And that is what breaks her. Now, for those who are curious about what inspired me to make this video, I was having a chat with one of my best friends. Important information to pass on here. I have two besties. One has been my best friend for the last 18 years and the other for the last 7, almost 8 years. Neither of them have met the other yet, as I am the common denominator between them both. But as I was saying, I was having a chat with one of my besties about how Rumi's desire for perfection, or rather her push for perfection that was instilled in her by virtue of her birth, is one that we can see take its toll on her with regards her relationship with her friends and her job as a member of Untrix. Because even though a lot of us recognize that a core theme for Rumi and to some extent Mira and Zoe's story arc in the film has to do with them releasing their fears and letting those fears become a part of them, as they are what make them strong, a lot of the time we gloss over how Rumi's need for perfection also drives a character arc within the story. And this need, like I said earlier, isn't just limited to her needing to maintain the perfect image of being a normal human in front of Mira and Zoe, not letting them even catch a glimpse of the patterns that would automatically mark her out as being half demon, but it's also tied to their work as Untrix, not the demon hunting part, but the entertaining their audience part. Now, I'm sure there have been a ton of think pieces consisting of videos and write-ups about how grueling the K-pop industry actually is and the toll it places on its artists. I've been a K-pop fan since the late 2000s, so trust me, watching K-pop Demon Hunters was like being able to see a version of K-pop light, where the girls are not being hounded about the food they are eating, the amount of food they are eating, them possibly liking and being romantically involved with the Saja boys, them not having to train every single moment of every single day until their body and spirit breaks down. Rumi, Zoe, and Mira have it way easier in this film, and for that I am infinitely grateful. But the need for perfection still bleeds into the work regardless. And like my bestie and I agreed, we see that come through quite clearly in Rumi's music, specifically her voice. Now, I'm sure nobody's about to argue with me on this, and I've seen the reaction videos by vocalists and vocal trainers alike that Rumi hits some of the highest notes in the film. I mean, every time we try singing Golden, I'm sure most, if not all the viewers, drop our register like normal human beings who should not be forcing our voices to go that high. But Rumi does not. Or at least she doesn't until the end of the film when she's singing This Is What It Sounds Like with the other girls to fight Guima, which is when her voice visibly drops to a register that is more comfortable for her. And that got me thinking about how her childhood probably contributed to that. Because picture this, a young Rumi who is cared for and loved by Celine, who has adopted her and is letting her know of their responsibility to hunt demons and protect humanity from demonkind by hopefully in Rumi's time turning the unmoon golden. Rumi, who's been trained by Celine to understand the power of her voice and utilize that voice not only to fight the demons but to also capture the hearts of the audience, since strengthening the honeymoon requires the multiple voices of those listening to the music and singing along, adding their own power to the enchantment itself. Rumi has known since her childhood what is required of her voice, and it is the knowledge of that that we see bleed into said voice. At the start of the film, the fans who are waiting for Untrix to show up for their final show, after which they will take a break, spoke about each of the members. Mira with her rebellious ways that had her stand out from the rest of her family. Zoe, who is a maknae, who is otherwise sweet and adorable until it's time for her to rap, at which point she goes hard. For Rumi, however, they focus on two things. Her voice, which is like an angel, which I don't know about you, but already had me set in my mind with an expectation of what she would sound like when we got around to hearing her. And she sounded exactly the way I figured she would when How It's Done dropped. And her connection to the Sunlight Sisters, particularly her mother, who is the reason why Untrix was then built around Rumi, in the words of said fans. And that interview made two things clear for me. One, that Rumi was dealing with a legacy that she had to uphold and live up to. And two, that her voice was what her fans most cherished about her. And so I don't think it's a coincidence that the film, in order to establish Rumi's fears about her rapidly spreading patterns and the dwindling time that she had to turn the Onmun golden, shows us how quickly she's approaching the precipice of her perfection shattering, both before her friends and before their fans, and why she is so desperate to prevent that. On the night that would have been their performance of their brand new single, Golden, her patterns reach her neck. And the minute they do, her voice crack whilst they are in the middle of rehearsals. It's symbolic of how the high notes that she had forced herself to hit all these years and all this time to prove that she really is the voice of the group and is following through on and maintaining her mother's legacy as a Sunlight Sister is a burden she can't bear anymore. The cracks have gotten bigger and she can't hide them anymore. Both the patterns and the capacity her voice can hold. And so she flees. Now, the first time I watched Kpop Demon Hunters, I was working with the assumption that she was running because she wanted to hide away from Mira and Zoe, as that is when she sees for the first time how much farther the patterns had spread. And she's panicking about that. But upon my many rewatches afterwards, what can I say? I love this film. Also, yes, I am pissed that some of you all got to go for the sing-along theatrical releases and I couldn't, in my corner of the world. I hate you. Lucky bastards. Anyway, as I was saying, upon my rewatches, I noticed that Rumi was running away from Mira and Zoe, yes, but she was also running away from the Untrix fans gathered outside the door, waiting to be let in for the Golden live performance. The significance of her turning her back on those two groups of people, her fellow Untrix members and their fans, was to signify exactly how isolated she had become, with no one to turn to, as she dealt with the fears that were fast swallowing her whole and turning her into someone that was not the perception of has everything handled well in hand that everyone else thought about her. Even Celine in that moment wasn't with her. She wasn't someone she could turn to or reach out for help, as Celine also came with the expectations of what Rumi had to do and hide to ensure that no one suspected anything and instead continued to perceive her as being fully human, with a voice that was going to unite the world and bring forth the golden honeymoon. And I don't know if I'm the only one that read it that way, but the entire scenario just made me think of reality with high-performing students or people who are gifted in some way, whereby the talents, the things that you're good at become this absolute yoke that starts to suffocate you, with the expectations that come with them and the dawning horror that there isn't room for you to fail, that there isn't room for you to leave, to move away and do something else, to lay down the burden and take a break. And how that in turn then isolates you from others, from friends who you are either convinced might not be able to fully understand you and where you're coming from, or you're worried that they would judge you, that you're collapsing from underneath all that weight, from the audience or the teachers for whom you have to perform that brilliance, who have built up an expectation of you based off of your prior performance, and now you cannot go back. From the parents or parental figures who have sacrificed so much to bring you to the stage where you're at, and whose sacrifices have turned into expectations that you believe need to be met so that everything they've done wouldn't be for naught. I know it's easy to be dismissive of art recently, but with art, we also interpret, analyze, and speak to our very human experiences and fears. And that is what I saw with Rumi. A young girl on whom the expectation for perfection had been placed, and while she had to perform for it, it isolated her. Which is why this is what it sounds like. It's one of my absolute favorite songs and performances in the film. Because it's a song that unites Rumi with her friends again. It is a song where she isn't forcing her voice to hit notes that are straining her, notes that make it seem like she has to hit them to justify why she has the audience they do and why she's the lead vocalist of Ontrix. It's the song where her patterns are on full display. It's the voice where she's unafraid to show her imperfections and is loved and accepted regardless by Mira, by Zoe, by their fans who eventually join them in singing along as together they defeat Guima. It's a scene that would never fail to make me cry, even more so than the scenes that come afterwards, with Rumi finally joining her friends at the bathhouse and getting to truly be and relax with them without any worries or fears. Because that moment is a turning point and a clarion call for Rumi and for others like her, who are saddled with the burden of perfection, as Kpop Demon Hunters asks us all to just let them go and simply be. But maybe that is just me. Maybe you disagree with what I just said, which, honestly, if you do, I would be super curious to know why. So whether you agree with me or disagree with me, please let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Like this video if you've watched this far and haven't done so yet. Share this video if you want. Support me on Patreon if you can. If you can't, however, do consider checking out my other channels. One of them is my gaming channel and the other is for my ASMR content. I have both linked in the description bar if they sound like something you want to check out. Whichever the case may be, however, I will see you on Monday with a new video. Until then, do remember, obsessing over the things you love, perfectly valid coping mechanism.